Hello everyone, my name's James, and welcome to the Pirates Cove podcast. Now, I know it's been a while since my last episode, and I'm not actually very happy with that episode because my opinion's kind of changed since it last released. But in this video, I want to discuss the recent theory that T-Dreads and a few other theorists made called Guts Theory, which is basically that taking the line William says in the fourth closet about the spirit follows the flesh literally, being that the animatronics literally have organs inside them, all mushed up and cut up and such. I think a lot of the people, including myself, have for the longest time thought William stuffed the bodies in the animatronics, he gets fired, then Fazbear Entertainment finds the bodies, and because of their policy that any dead people found on the premises will be reported as a missing person, the bodies get disposed of and the animatronics stay possessed. Guts theory suggests that they didn't, and their organs are still in the animatronics all the way up to Follow Me, and also that the way cislocation works is instead of just, when Baby or Freddy captures a child and then possesses them, and then the remnant is sort of melted down from them and injected into the other fun times, it is literally that the scooper digs out the internal organs of the children they've captured, and then puts and mushes them into the other Funtime animatronics. That is actually disgusting, and watch their live stream. It's really impressive and is probably true. The way it kept developing is mental. But there's just a couple thoughts I have about the theory that I think they missed. Starting with the scooping room itself. Now, in cislocation, we're told on night 5 that the scooping room is only supposed to be accessed for cleaning. Now, considering that Fazbear Entertainment can't even be arsed to clean 20-year-old costumes, I don't think William's going to be cleaning something that has literal dead bodies on it regularly. So, there's a high likelihood that the reason why employees aren't allowed in there is so they can't see the bodies. And that's why there's these 2 panes of glass that the employees have to stand behind while the room is dark, so they can't see inside and see the organs being pulled out. So that's my first thought about the theory, and it's evidence for it. My second thought is about Charlie, and more so maybe that the bodies can be mostly removed or not literally be there, because the way Charlie is possessed has no actual guts and organs on it. Charlie was just... Well, I don't think she was stabbed in the alleyway, because why would William have a knife? But she was killed in the alleyway, and then the puppet flops on her and possesses her. Now, this doesn't make sense with Guts theory. In fact, in the live stream, they were discussing it, saying maybe she's not even an actual ghost at all, and instead a agony possession thing, or memory or something like that. And their other idea was that maybe that's a natural possession, and William shoving guts into the animatronics is like an unnatural possession that has to be forced. What I'm thinking is maybe possession can be without the organs, and the organs just have to be there for a long time for them to sort of fuse with the metal. And my main idea with this is a mixture of Ennard and Scrap Baby. So Ennard, I don't see how Ennard could fit the literal innards of the children inside him. He is very thinned down. If you look at the scooper room when Mike's being scooped, a lot of the Funtime shells still have loads of their endoskeleton inside. The Funtimes only took what was necessary to keep themselves sentient, and you don't actually see that much of them in Ennard. You see their eyes, and you see what seems to be an endoskeleton around the same size as Ballora. So they must have shed quite a bit. And so I don't know how the animatronics could keep their bodies in Ennards, because that they'd probably have to be much more bulky for that to work. So I'm thinking maybe because the children have been possessing the robots for so long, maybe they can just have their bodies removed. And that's why sort of Molten Freddy's sort of... Well, actually, no, Molten Freddy being feral doesn't work. Okay, that doesn't matter. But Scrap Baby, right? With this theory, it is literally that putting The theory suggests that Shatter Elizabeth is true, that Elizabeth has been split among the other Funtime animatronics. Because Circus Baby says that Scooper only hurts for a moment, and the only way that would work with Guts theory is if she had her guts torn out of Circus Baby and shoved into the other Funtime animatronics. Now, naturally, putting Elizabeth back together would probably be putting the organs back together in one animatronic so that she can be fully aware. But Ennard doesn't seem to have that. So when Mike says that he put Elizabeth back together at the end of Sister Location Custom Night, it might be implying that since her body was in the animatronics for so long, that it's the metal possessed instead of the actual body. Because it wouldn't make sense for Ennard to somehow fit like 20 children's bodies in him, if schedule theory is true, because I think schedule theory is pretty likely. I now want to talk about Springtrap and Scraptrap. I'm still on the fence about whether the suits are the same or different. I'm kind of leaning different because Springtrap, he's a proper Springlock suit, He's got the entire endoskeleton in there. Scraptrap only has sister location wires. Like, he has nothing else on him, Well, besides the ears, Scraptrap is an entirely fabric suit with William inside. And because of that, I also want to think is how much is FNAF 3 Springtrap's corpse sort of canon? Because every other depiction of Springtrap that isn't just his FNAF 3 model has a full body inside it, including Scraptrap, And in fact, I know Scraptrap's 3 model is a bit shit, let's be honest here, but it also has quite a bit of thought put into it. So there's 3 materials on Scraptrap's corpse. I say corpse lightly, he is a heartbeat, he is technically alive. But there's a skin texture, a flesh muscle texture, and a bone texture. And actually looking at what we can see through the suits, you can see how his legs don't have skin on them, they're just the muscles, and you can see the bones. His arms still have skin on them, his hand still has skin on him, but his torso's all cut up. And you can't really see any ribs, which makes sense. The Springlock suits would have broken those just when stabbing you in the lungs. His head still has skin on it, which, besides the little bars that jam into your jaw, like we see on Springtrap, there doesn't actually seem to be that many Springlocks in the Springlock head thing. So since Scraptrap's corpse is so thought out about how it would be affected by a Springlock failure, does that mean that Springtrap's corpse in canon should just look like a more put together Scraptrap corpse? Because it really, even if he was repairing himself with the organs of the missing children, because, like I said, Scraptrap has Funtime wiring on him instead of an actual endoskeleton, so maybe with Springtrap's appearance in Ennard Vent Repair missing an arm, it could be suggesting that Springtrap literally put the organs left in the Funtime bunker on him, which actually ties into another theory of mine that Ennard Vent Repair is canon, and that is Ennard going back down to the furnace to collect the rest of his endoskeleton, and him being burnt in there is what keeps him molten when he escapes, And it also ties into how Circus or Scrap Baby is covered in bits from the sister location bunker. She's got the lights from the circus control room in her torso. Her claws, the same one that she snatched Elizabeth with. Her shell seems to mostly be the same one. I know it's a bit different, but, FNAF has never been consistent with designs. It's implied Withered Freddy, the '85 Freddy looks like Withered Freddy but fixed. But Foxy looked like classic Foxy, and then he was withered down into the FNAF 2 Withered Foxy. But then in FNAF 1, he wasn't repaired like the other animatronics, but he turned back into his FNAF 1 turned back into his '85 design. So I think we can give a bit of lenience to Circus Baby and Scrap Baby's outer shells being the same thing. Right, I think we've taken a bit of too much of a detour from the original topic, which was Guts theory, because I just had a thought right there, And that is why none of the suits in the back are possessed. And that's because of Fazbear Entertainment's policy that if a body's found on the premises, they'll fucking clean it all up, bleach the carpets, bleach everything and replace the carpets. So that could explain why the suits aren't possessed, because Fazbear Entertainments keep removing the bodies before they can sort of integrate into the suits and possess them fully. That's where the theory ends. I can't think of anything more to add on to that. I can add more onto that policy though, because it's been a belief of mine for a while that the reason why Fazbear Entertainment has that policy in the first place is because of the Springlock suits. Like, think about it. If someone dies in a Springlock failure, Fazbear Entertainment don't want to be liable for that. So instead of reporting to the police or stuff, they'll clean up the body from the suit and then put them down as a missing person. Which we actually get evidence of this in Secret Mimic, where Dolly's the procedure for cleaning a Springlock suit after someone died in it, as said by Dolly, is to grind everything up on the inside, dump it all out, bleach it, and then hose out the remaining gunk. So I think that is where the start of that policy came from, and that helps explain why there's barely any possession of random employees in FNAF, while there's still possession of the children. And I guess the only thing left for me to think about with this theory is Springtrap and why he is alive while the other children are dead and possessing the suits. So I get, well, not possessing the suits, possessing the endos and whatnot, but you see, Springtrap, we know he's alive, like, definitively. Like, he sort of half died in Springtrap, but by the time we see him in Pizza Sim, you can hear his heartbeat, and, like, he's talking, not with the animatronic voice, like how Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy and the puppet are, but with his actual human mouth and lungs and such. Like, you can hear the raspiness in his voice and the pain he's going through. So, with him being alive, I want to think about why. So I guess, like, looking at the Springlock failure, what that would do is, trap his arms and legs in the Springlocks and dig into them and cause them to bleed out. And his head, from what we can see, I guess 2 bars will be jammed into, like, the side of his face, and 2 other ones will be jammed in his mouth, which forces it open. But besides, and the ears kind of get stuck in his head. But besides that, there doesn't seem to actually be much of damage in his, in those all those regions. The main piece of damage comes from the ribs, which dig into you and break your ribs, which I think is the case because we don't see any ribs on Scraptrap, and also stab you in the lungs and cause you to drown in your own blood. But but maybe that's not the case in the games. Like, maybe maybe it didn't jam into his lungs and cause him to bleed out because he can talk. Albeit he can talk in the twisted ones, so that's probably doesn't matter. But what I'm thinking is that there has to be something different about William's death that made it so he didn't die. Like, he's not possessing the suit. He's just alive as a zombie kind of thing. So, like, looking at the missing children's incident, in the books, I believe it's implied that they were died being stuffed in the animatronics, and in the games were directly showed in Foxy Go 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 and in Into the Pit, albeit Into the Pit's kind of sees a bit off-kilter, I guess you'd say. And, well, not off-kilter. I'm bad with words at the moment, I'm tired. But, that William killed the kids, left them around for a bit, and then stuffed them into the suits. Because Help Wanted seems to imply that he did indeed stuff the suits, and not the puppets. And also, like, every other continuity has him stuffing the kids in the suits instead of the puppets, so I don't think it would be puppet stuff. But really, that doesn't really answer any questions. I mean, you could look at Give Gifts, Give Life, which some people have been interpreting as the puppet making the animatronics aware of their animatronics and being able to control them, like putting them back together. But the thing is, the children's spirits should be together inside the suits. Like, they shouldn't need to be put back together. So maybe, this is just a thought I've had for a small while, maybe give life is literal, and the puppet is literally giving life to the animatronics, or to the bodies, and momentarily bringing them back to life, but then they die immediately afterwards, and that causes them to possess the animatronics, because they were killed and then stuffed inside the suits, whereas in the books they were killed being stuffed into the suits. And that also ties into the story about the woman with the 5 keys that she melts down into one. You know, she had the key to bring one of them back to life and save them, but instead she tried to bring all of them back to life, which caused them to possess the animatronics. And it's an idea for how to solve give gifts, give life, but it doesn't solve why Springtrap's special. So I guess we'll look at the other possessions, or sorry, not possessions, the other sort of zombie characters that appear, which would be Michael and Carlton from the books. So Michael, he's hit by the scooper, and then his organs in his torso are torn out, and Ennard climbs inside, wears him around like a mech suit, and then scurries off into the sewers when Michael decays too much. But then in the last cutscene of Michael falling to the floor from Ennard ejecting from him, you repeatedly hear Elizabeth's voice saying, "You won't die, you won't die, you won't die, you won't die, you won't die," and then Michael raises again. So we're left with two interpretations there. Either he got Remnant from the scooper being injected to him, which Guts theory seems to maybe disprove, because the scooper now literally seems to be moving organs into other animatronics. So I think that does leave Elizabeth putting some sort of remnant into him before she left, which matches up with Carlton from the books. So in the books, right, William is experimenting with Remnant and stuff, and he injects the molten metal into Carlton's heart, which would kill him, But because it's Remnant and not just normal molten metal, the spirits of the ghosts are inside him and keep him alive. And at the end, the Golden Freddy kid, Michael Brooks, lets him keep some of the Remnant inside him, and that brings him back to life. So even though he should be dead, he's not, because of Remnant. So that could be the same thing that's happening to Michael, where Elizabeth is giving her some of her Remnant as all the children leave him. Actually, I think that's what it works with. So, does that work with William? It's hard to say, because we don't have an example of a spirit latching onto him. Well, sorry, not like that. Not giving him his Remnant like we see with Michael or with Carlton. There is a theory that at the end of Follow Me, when William's being springlocked, that the Golden Freddy kid that latches onto him there, because the kid was chasing around William and trying to corner him, so that maybe that's when the Golden Freddy kid latches onto him. Because we know in Ultimate Custom Night, somehow Golden Freddy is able to hold William and keep him from dying. Very similar to Carlton and Michael, except maybe it's not as similar, but it's the same general concept, I think that's something that I'd need to work on for like a proper theory video. And with that, I can't think of anything more to talk about with Guts theory. So, this has been episode 5 of the Pirates Cove podcast. I'm sorry for the irregular uploads. I just don't have many things to talk about, and the things I do want to talk about, I want to make full videos for. Speaking of which, I am working on a full video. I know originally said I was going to talk about Charlie's death and the theory around it, but that one is... that needs a bit more work put into it, and I don't think I'll have it remotely done anytime soon. So I am currently working on a theory about what the bite victim saw, before FNAF 4. I'm actually pretty confident in it, and if it gets any amount of movement into the majority of the FNAF fandom, I think it will get a lot of supporters. It is something that I've thought about and thought for a couple years now. So be on the lookout for that. So subscribe for that, and I'll see you probably in a couple months, to be honest with you. So again, this has been James. This is the Pirates Cove podcast, and have a good night.